Welcome to Learning to Teach in the Early Years. I'm April Derringer, and I'm going to take you on a journey of thinking about culture in early childhood programs. Let's get started. So when we think about culture, oftentimes people want to think of it as this big mystic thing or this thing that is very different from ourselves. Our culture is our background. It's all the experiences that have made up who we are today. So that's what children are bringing with them when they come into our programs, their own backgrounds based on their lived experience. And that's how we have to adapt to them in the early childhood classroom. These aspects of culture that the children bring with them into our program can be anything from things like food, the way they dress, the music they listen to, the holidays they celebrate, the language they use. Or it can be other things like beliefs that they have, child-rearing beliefs, the values their family has related to education. It's the unspoken things or things that may be not as visible. That's why we use this iceberg as a graphic here. So the visible elements of culture are things like the food and dress and music and the language. We can see those. Those are pretty visible and they're pretty easy to pick out from person to person. But each one of us also has invisible aspects of our culture that we bring. And those can be a little harder to figure out because sometimes we don't even know what those aspects are. So we have to be aware of that when we are incorporating culture into our classroom, that there are both visible and invisible aspects of culture in early childhood. Another component that I'd like to speak to you about are what we call competing cultures. So we talked about the fact that the child has a culture. However, most of the child's culture is going to be made up of the family that they're being raised in, the family's culture, what they're bringing into the classroom. Then we have the staff or the educators' culture. They come into our program, they bring their own culture. They bring their own ways of teaching, their own beliefs. Then we also have the community culture. This is the community where the early childhood program is located in. So there's these aspects that surround us geographically as well. And they kind of bring in different aspects of who we're going to be, the practices we're going to do, the things we will celebrate. And all of those things combined will make up our early childhood culture. And this is why early childhood programs are so unique, because we can even have an early childhood program that's a chain and works in the same city, but when you go to them, each one will feel a little bit different. They may follow the same curriculum, they go to the same trainings, they have the same owner, they use the same staff handbook, yet when you go, each feels slightly different, and there's a very good reason for that. And that's because of these competing cultures, each person bringing their own culture into this environment. So that just shows you how impactful culture can be in an early childhood program. Now we're going to talk about guarding against oppression. It's very important in our programs that we think about the interactions that are happening in our program so that we can guard against any oppression, which may be overt acts of oppression like stereotyping, racist comments, all the way down to microaggressions, things that happen that people may not know are offensive or hurtful, but they indeed are to certain groups of people. One of the ways that we can guard against this is to really get to know our children and our staff. We want to let them see us as individuals and also see them as individuals and who they are, and make sure that we validate each person's ideas and emotions in the program. This does not mean we have to permit bad behaviors, but we do have to know where people are coming from and be willing to listen and hear people's stories so that we get to know them better and may know where they're coming from. We like to use a term in early childhood called using windows and mirrors. The concept of a window is in our program, we want to provide a window out to the larger world. We want to open the children up to the larger society as a whole. Then we also want to provide mirrors, and this is opportunities for the children and adults in our program to see themselves reflected in our program. This can be through the materials we choose, bringing pieces of their lives into our program. So these are all very important things that help us to ensure that we're guarding against oppression. Finally, it's important for us to think about culture as something that is dynamic and always changing. Culture isn't something that stays static. What your culture is today may not be the same as it is tomorrow, because as we age, we change. Our friends may change, our living situations may change, our knowledge hopefully changes as we get older. But it's important to realize that this is constantly changing, and therefore we need to be constantly adapting and being flexible in our own practices so that we can accommodate and meet people where they are. I hope you enjoyed this video on culture and how you can strengthen your program by considering the cultures that people bring into your early childhood setting. If you liked this video, please like it, and you can even go to my channel and subscribe to help support what I'm doing here, teaching the early years in Central Illinois. Thank you.